now we move on over to the West. All right. Drake, you want to start us off?
Yep. We're going for the viewers. We're gonna go back just like we did. So 10-1. I have the New Orleans Pelicans as my 10th seed here. I still have some questions about this roster. Is the coaching decisions that they made? Do they have the right coach? Can Willie Green do good in his rookie year? A lot of rookie coaches this year feels like, at least on pretty talented teams, or at least a team with a talented player. But I think Bi and Zion are both going to take steps this year. There are solid pieces on that roster. With Devonte Graham, I think as a scorer, hopefully off the bench for them. Jonas Valanciunas, I think, is pretty good at the five, along with side Zion. Can some of their young guys do pretty well, like such as Kyra Lewis? Can they make a rule for themselves? I don't know. Like I still have questions about New Orleans, but I look at the rest of the West. Like they should be the 10th seed. If they don't become the 10th seed minimum this season, then there's gonna be some questions about Zion's long-term future there. Like I think there are, but for now, I'm gonna give him a little bit of faith. I got the Pelicans as my 10th seed.
I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna have the Timberwolves as a 10 seed. I know they've been so garbage the past couple of years, but I don't know. Maybe this is just the year they kind of get it together and become somewhat of a capable team. Obviously, I don't think they're gonna go anywhere far. They might even be the 10 seed with a 500 record or below 500 record. You never know. But they're just Cad, D'Lo, and Anthony Edwards. I think there's just talent there, and just hopefully, I just have faith that this is the year they do get it together. They obviously could be wrong. Most likely will be wrong, but I'm just taking a leap of faith here and saying they're going to be a 10 seed.
Yeah, I do have the
Oh
Timberwolves
my
as the 10th
god.
seed too. Look, on paper, the Timberwolves should be a decent team. You have Cat, you have D'Lo, you have Anthony Edwards. You have Malik Beasley. They have so much talent, and obviously last year was kind of like a shit show just for everyone, but especially the Timberwolves, especially with Cat. So I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. But I kind of like their roster. I think the addition of Patrick Beverley is gonna be huge for them. It's gonna make these young dudes actually give a shit on defense, and obviously like the Timberwolves have been putrid on defense for so long. I love Chris Finch as like a coach. I think one full season with him, there's a bit more stability, obviously, on this team. But I think with the addition of Patrick Beverley as like that vocal leader, again, I don't know how they're going to respond because we've seen with Jimmy Butler, but I do think they know what they're getting with Patrick Beverley. I think they're going to respond better to him than they did with Jimmy Butler. But I think everything healthy, this team has enough offensive firepower to at least flirt with that play. And so, yeah, I have them as a 10th seed. Um, Jurg, you said your 10th seed, right? Oh,
Yeah,
you said the Pelicans. Okay.
I had the Pelicans.
Okay, so all right, I guess we'll start with this one. Ninth seed, I got the Memphis Grizzlies. So shout out to the Memphis Grizzlies because ever since Ja's there and they kind of took the rebuild approach, they've still managed to be competitive. So they made some moves this offseason. I think they did get rid of Jonas Valanciunas. Now I think that move made them worse. They got Steven Adams and they got Eric Bledsoe. Bledsoe I think got traded to the Clippers. So I think Steven Adams is like the only addition they have left that stayed with the team. I don't necessarily know if I like that addition. I don't know if I like that fit with Ja because Steven Adams kind of clogs the paint and Ja's kind of more like a drive-in penetrator. So I don't necessarily know if I like that addition, but they made some moves in their small forward position. I think they added Jarrett Culver, which I think could be a decent rebuild project. They drafted Zaire Williams, so there's more depth. But the thing is, they're still young, right? And I just think there's going to be more competition in that part of the standings, especially in the West. That flirting with the playoff playing team. Yeah. So, Jarek, who do you got for your ninth seed?
I also have the Memphis Grizzlies. I just think like the Grizzlies are too good to not be a
Yeah.
playoff team, but they're not good enough to like definitively be a top six team at all. So I have them as my ninth team. Like John Morant is going to take another step, I feel, this season. Dillon Brooks, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson Jr., all good pieces there. Brendan Clark and Tyus Jones are, solid guys to have there, whether it's starts for Brendan Clark or not. Tyus Jones, I think, has proven to be a pretty good backup guard in Memphis for Ja. I really like it. And I think Santi Aldama, the late first round pick that they traded up for in the 2021 NBA draft, he could find some playing time for himself early in his rookie campaign. And the kid averaged I think it was 20 and 10 in his second year in college. So and he's a pretty finished prospect, so I think he could come in early. I just think Memphis, like there's enough there for them to be a play-in team, not a bona fide playoff team, but a play-in team once again. And like I think Ja by himself, like I don't think he's going to allow them to be anything less than a play-in team.
Shout out to them, man. I like the Grizzlies have been so stable, man. They've been so consistent. They're like one of my favorite young teams in the NBA. Go ahead, Dame.
Yeah, I have the Grizzlies as a 9 seed as well. I think they were a 9 seed last year, the 8 seed or whatever, but they were in the playing game. I don't think anything changes this year. Obviously, the loss of Valanciunas and switching it for Steven Adams, I never liked in the first place. I think Jonas Valanciunas was so big for them in the playoffs and in the regular season. He always got in foul trouble, so that kind of hurt them sometimes. But I mean, you're losing a lot when you go from him to Steven Adams. You can't really throw it down to Steven Adams until you get a bucket in the post. Steven Adams, he's a great screener, I guess. He's a big body, I guess a protector, but he's not as good of an offensive player as Jonas Valanciunas was. So I think that's definitely going to hurt them. It's going to put a lot more pressure on Ja to make things happen. But I still like their team enough. All the young players they have on that roster, and of course Ja's just budding superstar in the making. Which is why I have him as a 9 seed. You want me to go to my eighth right
Yep.
away?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I have the Portland Trailblazers as the 8 seed. Um, just a team that just knows that Damian Lillard is getting frustrated with not winning and just doesn't get better. They lost Carmelo Anthony, of course, but I don't think that's really on them. I just think Carmelo wanted to just go play with LeBron or LA or somewhere else. But regardless of the fact, like they just didn't get better as a team when they really needed to. So I think it's inevitable that Damian Lillard eventually is going to leave. But I mean, just the fact that I just believe in Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum enough that I have him as an 8 seed, but I really wouldn't be shocked if they just don't make the playoffs at all because of the incapability of their front office to really put talent around Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum and make them a better team.
Jurg, let me go next because I also have the Portland Trailblazers.
No, this
Yeah.
is bad.
Bro.
So I mean, look, I think you're going to be in the playoff run regardless if you have Damian Lillard and obviously CJ McCollum, but this team didn't get better. Well, like, what roster additions did they make in the offseason? I guess Larry Nance, but like, how far does Larry Nance, take you?
Not at all.
This team is still an abomination on defense. I do think they'll be able to score, and I do think a full season with Norman Powell, there's gonna be nights where they light it up from three. So, but I do think their starting line was going to be Lillard, McCollum, Norman Powell, Robert Covington, Yusuf Nurkic. Yeah, like that team is going to be just a dumpster fire in defense, but they're going to score the ball a lot. I just think this portion of this portion of the West is it's just too stacked. It's just too stacked. I have too many teams that could match up with them on offense, but also they're going to be able to play defense as well, which is why I think the Blazers are going to drop off from, which is why I have the Blazers at 8 is because like they're just so defensively challenged. I feel bad for Lillard. He kind of knows what he's getting into. I think this is going to be his last season, so Blazers fans enjoy it while you can. So yeah, Dame, Jared, go ahead. Who's your 8th?
I also have the Portland Trail Blazers, so once
Nice.
again, we're going a 3 for 3 here. I'm not going to spend too much time. I despise this team. I hope they miss the playoffs, and if they make
It's
the
your
playoffs,
Tennessee Titans of the NBA, Jared.
I want them to get yes, they're the Tennessee Titans of the NBA for me. I'm trying to think of who the other equivalents would be, but another time. Like, no, man, I'm so sick of this team. You could have blown it up this summer. You could have gotten assets for Dame. You could have gotten assets for CJ. You could have gotten assets for Nurkic. But no, you're doing this whole tire trope. You want to pretend that if you give it one last go around, something will different. No, it's not. The team's the same. Of all the teams that we have for this preview, because I wrote down like key pieces, I have nothing written down for Portland. You want to know why? Because it's the same team the last 3-4 damn years. You're not gonna win. Like, just because you switch the head coach and Terry Stotts, I'll admit, probably like kind of got stale there. Head coaching change ain't gonna do nothing. Which Dame wasn't even that like invested in the coaching change for them to make, which is saying something because they hired Chauncey Billups, and Dame is one of those guys who always stands up for like players of color, or like former players and people of color to get head coaching positions. The fact that he didn't care, that didn't sway him. No, I hate
Mm-hmm.
Portland. I want them to lose. I want them to get swept. I'm sorry, Damian Lillard, that you have to suffer once again at the hands of this organization. But no, man, I'm done with this team. Now I want to move on. Like I don't want to deal with them anymore. My
Go ahead.
seventh seed, the Dallas Mavericks. Like Luka, once again, supremely talented, bona fide superstar, will be an MVP candidate just based off of the numbers. But I still don't think there's enough around him in Dallas to really then make a big of an impact. Their head coach, His name is escaping me off the top of my head. I really feel bad. But
Kid.
oh, it's Jason Kidd. Oh, okay. So yeah, they're my bad. They're definitely my seventh seed then. No, there's just not enough there. Like Jalen Brunson and Hardaway are going to help with some of the scoring, but Luca, like, there's still not a real second playmaker to Luca in terms of passing, and I'm not a fan of that. Powell is decent at the 5 spot with Willie Cauley-Stein as a backup. It's not bad. It's just, man, Porzingis, unless he somehow does like a complete 180 for his career, I don't really have a lot of faith in this team. Like, Luca is going to have his great nights, and probably I wouldn't be shocked if, like, in the first 15 games of the season, the Mavs go like 11-4, and everyone's like, "Oh, Luca, Dallas, da da da," and everyone is overhyping them, and then they lose 5 of their next 6, and it's like, are the Dallas Mavericks overrated? It's like, no, you people chose to put way too much expectations in them. They're still a 6 to 7 seed in terms of my predictions. So yeah, that's where I have them.
Uh,
Yeah, I've
okay, Dame, go
oh,
ahead. Go ahead.
I have the Clippers as a 7
Oh
seed.
my god.
I, Yo, I don't know, stop copying me. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to tell you. But a big reason is because obviously Kawhi's out. If he was playing, of course, I'd have him as a higher seed, but I just don't know what his timetable is to come back. Well, one report I read is a whole year, one was a couple months. You just never know with Kawhi. And even when he comes back, you just know there's going to be so many rest days for him to kind of rehab it during the season. If he does come back at all, of course. But they have definitely a good enough roster to still be a contender in the West while Kawhi is out. We saw it in the postseason last year when Kawhi was out. They almost made the finals without him. And of course, Ty Lue's, I think top 3, top 2, maybe the best coach in the league. I think he's
Whoa.
very underrated. He is. He's just that good. Just making adjustments on the fly, getting the best out of his players. I just really like Ty Lue. I wish the Lakers got him, but that's a conversation for a different day. But from Paul George to Marcus Morris, all these role players that they do have, I think they'll be good enough to be the 7th seed.
Yeah, so clearly, based on my frustration, I do have the Clippers as the 7th seed. Frustration because I'm agreeing with Dame, not because of the Clippers. But yeah, obviously the absence of Kawhi brings them down in the standings. But I'm not gonna lie. All right, before I bring the positives here, I question the health of this team sometimes. Obviously, PG is going to be the number one for them going forward. Um, I think he'll look good, but like how good will he look as the number one, as a consistent number one throughout the whole season? Because I think Kawhi um will probably be back towards the end of the season, maybe during the playoffs. So PG is going to be their main guy going forward. For the time being, of course. But it also depends on if they're healthy. I think Serge Ibaka missed like a plethora of games. Um, Marcus Morris I think got injured a little bit here and there. Bledsoe, I don't know how he's going to end up looking for this team. And they're really challenged at the center position, man. Like they lost to Marcus Cousins. I don't even know where DeMarcus Cousins is now. But Serge Ibaka again is your main center, but like who knows how often he's going to play. But I'll say this, I do kind of like the additions they made during the offseason. Like they didn't make anything crazy spectacular, but they added like a lot of young guys slash like low key moves. Like you have Justice Winslow, who I think, if healthy, and Jurg could tell you this, is a pretty important addition in my opinion. He could kind of fill Kawhi's role a little bit. Um, Especially if like he improves his jump shot. But I like their draft picks in Keon Johnson and Brandon Boston Jr. And I forgot their center would be Zubac coming off the bench, and Harry Giles as well. And again, I think the X factor here could be Bledsoe. I think he obviously would, fill in that scoring mantle if everything kind of plays right. So yeah, I have them as the 7th seed. Jurg, are you up as your 7th seed? Or
Uh, yeah,
oh no,
I
you're
have
up
them with the
6th
Mavericks.
seed, 6th seed.
Yeah, 6 seed
So yeah,
boys.
go ahead.
I got the Golden State Warriors. I think now that Steph is going to be healthy for a full season, hopefully, that he'll be able to really get things going with this team. I think there's some solid role players slash veterans around. Iguodala being back with Golden State is good for them. Otto Porter, I think, was an underrated signing. I think he could do good and provide double-digit scoring for the organization. Jordan Poole, like he's become a pretty good backup guard, and I think he'll fit very nice there. And they have a lot of young pieces there. Wiseman in year 2, Kuminga and Moody as rookies. Um, how all 3 of them do I want to see, and then some other guys as well with Kevon Looney and Andrew Wiggins. My big thing is how will what can Clay do coming back from injury? I know defensively he's not going to be the same, but offensively, is he still going to be able to do it for Golden State? Can he move around the screens the same? Can he get his shot up like as consistently as he did? Can he still be that he's probably not going to be an all-star again, but can he be that all-star caliber player? Can he put up 20 a game for this team while Steph puts up at least like 25, 27? If that can happen, like to me, Golden State is going to confidently be a 6 seed, because if Steph and Clay are rolling, Draymond can go back to his role of just being that defensive leader for this team. And if Draymond can just worry about that, and those guys handle the offense, like that machine can go, and then Steve Kerr will finally have his weapons to work with again. So I got Golden State as my 6 seed.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of at first I kind of had the Warriors lower than I did have, but I don't have them as low as a 6 seed. I have the Dallas Mavericks as a 6 seed. As for the Mavericks as a whole, Luka, of course, I think he might be the MVP this season. Like he should be probably the odds-on favorite in Vegas. I think the Dallas Mavericks, they're like it all comes down to KP whether he's gonna reach that potential that he's had for since he's came in the NBA or not.
For 7 years.
And yeah, for 7 years, and every year has just been dud. Like he's been hurt, he's been inconsistent, he's been soft, and I've seen obviously on the Knicks when he was a Knick, and just seen on Dallas ever since he got traded. So I don't know. In my opinion, I just don't think Dallas is gonna be that good because I don't just trust in KP. I do like Jason Kidd as a coach though for them. Maybe he will take something out of KP and bring the best out of him, but I just don't trust KP enough to do that. But I do expect a big Luka Doncic share and probably the MVP if you're gonna bet on something.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I will say this, like, I think to me, Dallas, Golden State, and the Clippers are all three teams that I think are going to be jumbled around in a similar fashion. Because I wouldn't be surprised for if Chris has especially because it would just match with you again, Dame. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mavericks are his 6th seed, because I feel those three teams, there are reasons to have them in this range, where the Clippers, it's due to their injury predominantly with Kawhi. The Golden State Warriors, it's because we believe and hope Steph will be back the whole time. It's all on how Clay will be, and if Clay is right, then that means Draymond will be fine. And then the Mavericks, like, I believe in Luka, I really do. It's just I think this team, it can hold him down to the extent where, like, I have them as a 7th seed personally, and I think it kind of goes back to last season. So I mean, I say those three teams, so we know for Dame it goes Clippers 7, Mavericks 6. Chris, we know the Clippers are your 7th seed. Are the Mavericks your 6th seed?
No, I have the
Oh,
Warriors at the 6th seed. So,
okay.
I do think they're clearly better than last year. Um, Obviously the ceiling of this team kind of depends on how Clay's going to be. I do have faith that Clay will be obviously of service. You know, he's just not going to be the same Clay that we've seen before. But they've made some like decent additions. They're a lot deeper now. The Otto Porter Jr. addition, Andre Iguodala's back, and look, I'm a fan of Kaminga and Moses Moody, man. Like and James Wiseman's year 2, he's gonna take a step forward. Jordan Poole as well. Yeah, oh, and Andrew Wiggins got vaccinated. Of course, I forgot about that. So look, they're gonna. I think they added some more shooting, which is obviously the Warriors' identity here. But yeah, I mean, they could honestly be a 4 or 5th seed if Clay comes back. If he returns to form. So, but that of course I think it's asking for a little too much, especially after he was gone for 2 years, like two of the most major injuries in sports. So yeah, I really like their roster a lot. The rookies have like more experience. They added more weapons. And you have Steph Curry. Wait, Jurg, did you say your 6th seed?
Yeah, I had the Warriors. You and me.
Okay.
We're
And
finally in sync.
Yes,
Damien had the Mavericks?
sir.
Okay. So I'll go to my 5th seed. The 5th, yeah, so 5th place I have the Mavericks. Yeah, like it's the Mavericks. I don't like Jason Kidd as a coach. I do think he's going to be beneficial to them because Luca is just so damn good that I don't know if he can have an actual coach to tell him what to do. And I think Kid is obviously like he's a player's guy. Yeah, I think. I don't know. There's been reports that he's bullied his players before, but yeah, I do think Luca is an MVP. KP is KP. Tim Hardaway, they just re-signed him. They signed, I believe, Reggie Bullock to a 3-year, 30 million, deal. So I think Bullock could. I mean, obviously, I wasn't huge on him, but he had a pretty decent impact on the Knicks. So you add more shooting and I guess a modicum of defense on that end. So I, the reason why I have them above the Clippers and the Warriors is because those two teams are both dealing with injuries that to players that have such a huge impact on their team. And for the Mavericks, I think they're gonna have everyone healthy, And also I could see like again the Clippers and the Warriors resting dudes, So I do think with a young team that takes the regular season a bit more seriously than other teams, I have them obviously. And when you have possibly leading NBA candidate, maybe him or Giannis, depends who you ask. They're gonna they're gonna be a fifth seed. I think the Mavericks have been like a fifth seed ever since Luca ascended into superstardom.
Yeah.
They're either the fourth or fifth seed. So I don't expect that to change. I do think the roster got like a slightly better. Slightly, I say that very loosely. But yeah, it's Luca. It's another year. Of course, he's gonna take you far. So yeah, Dame fifth seed.
Fifth seed, I have the Phoenix Suns. Obviously they were in the NBA Finals last year, but I think that was kind of their peak because although Chris Paul, I love Chris Paul. Obviously, he's one of the best point guards ever. I just think it's hard for him to really get better than he was, and hard for this team to replicate what they did last year. And a lot of it has to do also with my top four seeds. I just think they're better than the Suns as well. Um, so yeah, Suns for fifth seed. I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe got to the third seed, but definitely not any higher than that. I just think they kind of peaked to where they were last year. But yeah,
Uh, Not much there on the Suns. Okay, this will be interesting to see how it goes for me and Chris later on because the Suns are a bit higher for me. I'll spoil that. I have the Clippers as my fifth seed. Ultimately, I think it'll be interesting to see how the Tyronn Lue offense goes from just give the ball to LeBron to just give the ball to Kawhi to now just give the ball to Paul George. But I think Paul George being the lead guy isn't a bad situation at all. I think with Reggie Jackson there, he proved himself in the playoffs. He could still be a quality guard at the level. I think Marcus Morris and Zubac are they're definitely good for regular season basketball. Like I think there's a difference between the regular season and the playoffs. And I'm going to make that distinction for a particular team higher up in the standings as well. But I think the depth on this team, Kennard was fine in the regular season. He should find his 3-point shooting again. Terrence Mann, he could have a breakout year for himself in terms of regular season performance. And you still got veterans there in Batum and Ibaka. Like Chris said, I'll just accentuate the point here. Justice Winslow is a very valuable piece there. He's a forward. He's a great defensive wing, but he can take on some playmaking roles. He can handle the ball down the floor. It can help get you in the half court offense. He has such a unique skill set. The only reason that you forget about him is the injuries. And if he was just a little bit healthier throughout his career, he would be more valuable. Heck, he never may have even been traded from Miami if it weren't for all the injuries. So at the end of the day, this Clippers team, there are some questions to it. Part of the reason why I have him as the fifth seed is because if the reports that I read, I think last week are true, and Kawhi is progressing along well, when he returns in the second half of the season, and not for like the whole 41 games of the second half, I mean like the last 25 to 30 games, it'll take time to get him back in, but I think just his presence there will help them have like a little second half run that to me edges them as my fifth seed in the West. My fourth seed, just so we can blaze through, I have the Denver Nuggets. If Jamal Murray was definitively healthy the whole year, then obviously they would be much higher. But my thing is that the defense to me is a question with this team because when you look at their starting lineup, at least potential starting lineup for the regular season, Monty Morris, Will Barton, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. I love Joker, of course, last season's MVP, but the defense is still a question when it comes to this organization. And even on the bench, like Jeff Green and JaMychal Green are good rebounders, solid defenders, but then when it comes to the guards, not a lot of defense there with what they have. So defense to me is a big concern with this team, but I think on most nights they'll be fine. And with this offense, with Jokic leading the way, man, they're just way too talented. Jokic is just too good. He's going to be a triple double machine like always, and I think the team will be pretty good. And then whenever they get Jamal Murray back, I would be surprised if they also go on their kind of mini run. My concern is just like with Jamal Murray having to come back from his injury that he suffered so late. I think it's harder for a guard to get back into the sway of things than it would be a forward because I think Kawhi can take his time because he doesn't need to force things. Jamal Murray has always been better as a guy who gets the ball in his hands and creates. And I think it's going to take a little bit of time when he first gets back to get that chemistry back with the rest of the team. Jokic and Murray are so good, like they'll always have that connection, but it's with everyone else on the team that I have concerns. But I think Denver as my fourth seed, I think it's a fair assessment for them. But hey, maybe Jokic carries them farther. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna agree with Jurg here. I also have the Nuggets as the fourth seed. Um, yeah, I think they could be a top three seed, of course, with everyone healthy, but with no Murray, obviously they take a step down. Um, But it's the Nuggets, you know. You have Jokic, you have Aaron Gordon, and you have Michael Porter Jr. So I think the next step the Nuggets could take is kind of based upon how Michael Porter Jr. will progress, who signed a max extension this offseason. So you're kind of relying on him to take like a leap forward, a huge step forward, actually, especially with the money you're paying him now. But you know, I do think their guards are serviceable enough to fill in for Jamal Murray until he comes back towards the All Star break, because I think that'll be like the 1 year um, timetable. But you have Austin Rivers, you have Monte Morris. You know, hopefully Will Barton could stay healthy. He's always been kind of in and out of the lineup, but you know, it's the Nuggets. They're gonna be good regardless. But because of just like the injury with Jamal Murray, they're obviously I don't have them going in the top 3 seed. But I will say this: I don't necessarily know how much of an impact. I don't know how much playing time he'll have because he's a rookie. But I love this addition a lot. It's Bones Highland. I think he is a match made in heaven next to Jokic. You know, he is a sniper from three, and if he is just making if he's making threes on a consistent basis during the time in which he's playing, I think he'll find a lot more playing time than what we're projecting him to have. And I think he obviously would add more depth to the point guard position. So Nuggets 4th seed, but I think with Murray healthy, they'll make some noise in the playoff run because I do think from the All Star break, which is the year anniversary, I guess when he got injured, to the playoffs will be enough time for him to kind of get his groove back, and then the playoffs will be a little bit more in rhythm. So yeah, Nuggets at 4. Dame.
I have the Warriors at 4. I know you guys had them a little lower, but I'm a believer in this team. I've obviously seen what they've done the past few years when they were all healthy. Steph Curry. This is obviously all if everyone stays healthy. Clay's healthy, Steph's healthy, Draymond's healthy, but I don't think Clay's actually gonna be the same player that he was. But I think he's gonna be enough of a good player where they could be the 4th seed. Obviously, Steph he's gonna play at an MVP level as long as he stays healthy. And I think their two rookies are really good additions in Moody and Kuminga. I think they're really going to help this team in crucial points in the season. Wiseman obviously coming back from the injury, and Steve Kerr saying that he has confidence in him to be a great player. So that leads me to believe he's going to be playing a lot more. And obviously, Wiseman is a great defensive player and has a lot of offensive talent as well. So all that put together, I think the Warriors are going to be back in the top 4 seed and definitely a team to be reckoned with in the playoffs. I think they could beat any of these teams in the West as long as they're fully healthy and really rolling. But a big thing for them obviously is going to be Clay's health because obviously he hasn't played 2.5 years, so it's going to be a big adjustment for him to just come back like that. But yeah, I have him as a 4th seed. You want me to just go straight to the 3rd seed?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have the Los Angeles Lakers as a 3rd seed. Obviously, I do think they're actually the best team in the West to come out of there and go to the NBA Finals. But as we all know, with LeBron, like he doesn't really take the regular season that serious, which is why I'm as 3rd seed. I think he's going to sit a lot of games. AD's going to sit games. Westbrook's going to sit a lot of games, and the number one thing is they're going to need a lot of time to mesh with their chemistry because they literally have a whole new roster outside of like LeBron and AD and like THT. So that's going to take some time to mesh, especially since they're all role players as well. So that's really going to take time. And obviously, the whole Westbrook and LeBron dynamic, I think that's going to take some time as well. You already see a lot of problems in the preseason with all these turnovers and stuff with them too. But eventually, I think they're going to get it rolling. And by the end of the season, you're going to be like, at the beginning of the season, you're going to hear a lot of concerns of like, damn, is this team really the best team in the West? Is this going to work? And then as time goes on and they kind of get over, I think by the end of the season you'll be like, okay, like this team is the favorite to come out the West, but they're just going to be a 3rd seed because they didn't really take it that serious in the beginning of the year.
Sure.
That's fair. I have the Utah Jazz as my 3rd seed here. I think the Jazz are going to be a top 3 seed again for sure. I still like what they bring. Conley being a veteran there, and he was obviously injured in their playoff run. I think him being back will help. The more him and Donovan Mitchell continue to like get to know each other well in the court, it just means the team will get better. Uh, the other Bogdanovich plays for them, so you have him there to help with the scoring. The power forward spot, it's decent, but Royce O'Neal, Rudy Gay is not bad, and then you have Jordan Clarkson and Joe Ingles to just shoot. For Clarkson, definitely can create his own shot. I think there's a lot there, and despite the fact that he's not my defensive player of the year for last season, you do have Rudy Gobert, and at least in the regular season, he works out. And playoffs is a different story, but at least for the regular season, he works out. Quinn Snyder is a good coach. Like, they'll be a top 3 seed once again. I think Utah, they could be higher. It's just all that part's on Donovan Mitchell, because I think Donovan Mitchell, if he has a chance to really put up an MVP candidate case this season, like if he can average like 29, 5 and 6 or something like that. Like we always point to Luka, we always point to Giannis the last couple of years, but I think Donovan Mitchell like needs to get a little bit of MVP consideration, because if the Jazz are a top 3 seed again, he's putting up those numbers. Like, hey, you gotta give him his credit, because he's been balling out.
Yeah, so I have the Phoenix Suns as my third seed. I think they brought everyone back this season. So I think they were the 2 seed last year. Bringing everyone back, I think they'll familiarity. I think the young guys are going to be a bit better. Do you guys think Devin Booker's a superstar?
Nah, not yet.
Not after one run.
I kind of got faked by in a couple games in the postseason, but I don't think he's there yet.
Honestly, when
Yeah,
you look back at that postseason run, like it was pretty good, but it wasn't as spectacular as everyone made it out to be. Like
no, that's fine. That's fine.
he would follow up a
Um,
37-point game with only 22. Like that's not great.
I mean, yeah. I mean, look, let's not turn this to the Devin Booker slander podcast, but I do think you know he's borderline all star to superstar. He's in that tier. And I think Chris Paul, obviously his leadership is gonna has obviously dawned on him a little bit. So again, you brought everyone back. You have Chris Paul. No one really that stands out in terms of like offseason additions. I think actually JaVale McGee signed with them, who I think is decent backup. He could obviously like handle the defensive side for the second unit. And I think, of course, with Darius Saric out, I know Darius Saric is primarily a 4, but he could also play the 5 sometimes. But he's going to be out, so I think that's actually he played decent for them. So that's going to be like kind of a hit. But I think with McGee, he's going to add a little bit of a defensive aspect to them for the second unit, of course. But again, you have Crowder, you have Cameron Johnson, and you have Mikal Bridges. And Mikal Bridges, I think, is heading into a contract year. So I expect him to take a leap forward. I mean, the Suns, they have transformed into a good team, which is a complete opposite of what they're used to being. And I think Chris Paul just re-signed as well. So not much to say here. I just think the continuity will be there. I don't think they'll be a good regular season team. I don't think they'll be making it far in the playoffs. I think a lot of things went their favor last playoffs. Shout out to them. They've been poverty for so long that I have them projected as a very good, obviously, third seed here for the second year in a row, in which they're going to be a good team. So shout out to the Suns for, establishing themselves as a good team. That's until Devin Booker leaves. All right. Dame, do you said your third seed or?
Yeah, the Lakers.
Okay. And Jurg, your third seed was the
Utah.
Jazz?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll move towards my second seed, which is the Utah Jazz. Yeah, so the Jazz are a really good regular season team. You have Donovan Mitchell, you have Rudy Gobert, of course, Jingles, Bogdanovich. You have Clarkson, who is a leading sixth man of the year award winner. Not much to say about them other than the fact that they are the Utah Jazz. Mike Conley, I think, re-signed. So I think it says a lot that they're obviously they're a really good defensive team, but I don't think last year was a fluke in terms of them being a really good 3-point shooting team. I think it's going to carry on over. But the Jazz they're always like in a good regular season team. It's the playoffs in which I'm worried about. But I think with a healthy Connolly, and I say that very loosely because Connolly always ends up finding a way in which he ends up being hurt. But I think if Connolly could stay healthy and consistent throughout, they'll be I think they'll be better than last year. I think during the playoffs is when he did get hurt, which is crucial because I think he came back like towards game 6, which is when they lost that lead. So that continuity kind of did falter a little bit. But again, it's the Jazz. You have Donovan Mitchell as your guy. I do think this is a very important year for them because look, man, it's gonna be like if it's the same story, really good in the regular season, get bounced by the second round of the playoffs. I think Mitchell's gonna start to look around and be like, all right, man, what are we doing here? We have to do something to kind of change this up. So I think this is a crucial year for the Jazz, but I do see them nothing changing. They're gonna be a really good regular season team. Side note, really like the addition of Jared Butler in the draft. I think he was a steal for them. So
Yes.
yeah. Jurg, your second.
I have the Los Angeles Lakers as my second seed. I think LeBron and AD being healthy for, relatively speaking, a full season will be big for them. I think Russell Westbrook, as I've said earlier on the pod, in previous episodes when the addition first happened. Westbrook is there for the games where LeBron and or AD are going to sit out so he can help carry the load offensively. And then you have two different groups of players to help this team. You got the veterans that they added, such as Wayne Ellington and Ken Bazemore for shooting, Dwight Howard, which was a big reacquisition for them, and DeAndre Jordan for the interior defense alongside AD will be big. And then Rondo as the veteran point guard and Carmelo to help with scoring. He can create a shot for himself. And then you got some of the young guys that they added. Taylor Horton Tucker, I know he's going to start. I think they just said he got hurt, and I think he's getting a procedure or something. So he's going to be out for a little bit. But when he comes back, he's a 3-and-D player. Kendrick Nunn, I can tell you as a Heat fan, like he's going to have some games where he's just going to be scorching off the bench. He's going to have like a 20-pointer here and there. Kendrick Nunn is relatively consistent. I think he'll take him time to get used to playing with these guys, but Kendrick Nunn will be good. And then Malik Monk, again, more shooting, lanky, can create a shot for himself on a couple occasions too. Once again, as a Heat fan, I could tell you, like the Charlotte Hornets, whenever they would play, it felt like Malik Monk was always dropping at least 20 on us. It sucked. But yeah, I think the Lakers, it's just there's so much talent there. I think this is one of the last years they're going to be a definitive title contender, and they need to take advantage of that. And I think this team, it has the build. Like Dame said, they're going to be a little bit slow to start the season, but I think when this team hits their stride, like it's going to be like it's going to be like what the Heat Big Three did back in that first season. I think it's like we start out 9-8, and then we won like 20 of the next 21 or something like that. Along those lines, like that, this team is going to put up a stretch like that where they're going to win like 19 of like 22 games or something in the middle of the season. Like they're going to be a force if they're fully healthy. So Lakers is my number 2.
Yeah, I have the Utah Jazz as number 2. Obviously, they had the best record last year, but like Chris said, they're always going to be a great regular season team with the talent they have and the coaching they have. But it always just comes down to the playoffs where they really kind of not really collapse, but they're just not the same team that they are in the regular season. Um, Not really much to say. They still have the same, basically the same great roster they have, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do end up as the 1 seed. But for my 1 seed, I have the Denver Nuggets. I know I had them last year as the number 1 seed, and that kind of flopped, but I'm going back at it again. Jamal Murray hopefully coming back healthy. Michael Porter, maybe that extension will help him go to the next level. And of course, Jokic coming off an MVP season. Hopefully he can replicate it. And of course, all these great role players that they do have. Maybe they make up and they making a move, combining all these role players for a better player to really make that roster even better, adding that star. Maybe a Bradley Beal, you never know. But I just think this is the year that the Nuggets really get that number 1 seed and get that home court advantage to make them a bigger threat in the playoffs than they already were. Yeah, Nuggets 1, Jazz 2.
All right. Yeah, for my 1 seed, I have the Los Angeles Lakers. Again, it was a weird season last season, but obviously, I think LeBron's going to be more focused than last year. Again, I agree with you guys. How they start off might be a little bit, eh. It might be a little shaky, but I think they'll pick it up. Regardless, I don't, I just think they have enough talent and they have enough depth to get the 1 seed. Look, you're led by LeBron James, all right. So let's be honest here, but they are dealing with some injuries. I think Trevor Ariza. Who else got hurt? I think. I don't know. I just know they have. Oh
THT.
yeah, so THT. So the THT, Ariza, they have some minor injuries. I mean, they have some injuries that they're dealing with, of course. So I think the start of the season is gonna be a little bit shaky. But again, you have Russell Westbrook, you have LeBron, you have Anthony Davis. I know the fit with I know the fit with Russ might be a little bit iffy, but I mean we can say that about everyone else. But I think LeBron will eventually make it work. But other than that, I do think they have some depth at the center position with the Dwight Howard and the Andre Jordan. Rondo's there. I think Rondo was a huge piece for them. A huge reason why they won the title that year. And I think this is an underrated aspect of the Lakers. They really did stack up on some young talent that I think is going to be pretty big for them. Especially because, like, I mean, I know like LeBron loves playing with his veterans, but I do think you're going to need to have some versatility on that end. So I think Malik Monk, I think will be a good fit because yeah, he's young, but I do think he's a good shooter. And Kendrick Nunn, I think, is kind of hurt at the moment, but I don't know where he's gonna fit in, but I do think he'll be a decent addition. And they just picked up Sekou Demboya, and with all these injuries, especially like they're really challenged, I think, at the 4 spot. So I think Demboya, with everything that happened with Trevor Ariza and with Carmelo Anthony kind of being like a grandpa now, you could find some playing time with them. I know we sound like a train like a 2-way deal at the moment. I don't know if it's fully guaranteed, but I could see him making his way into this roster. But again, This is just side stuff. LeBron and AD, obviously. I mean, you never know with AD, to be honest, in terms of like health wise, but LeBron's going to be motivated. I think Russell Westbrook's going to play with a chip on his shoulder. The fit's going to be but I think they're going to hit their stride towards the end of the season. But I could see them, falling down out of the 1 seed because maybe they'll just, rest at that point. But who knows? I just think they have enough depth and led by LeBron James, clearly 1 seed. IMO.
Yeah, the Sekou thing is like, can you imagine going from Detroit to Los Angeles within the course of like a couple weeks? Like,
Heaven.
how much of a blessing is that? Not just for the basketball situation, but
That's Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, if I'm Sekou Doumbouya, I'm hitting up Matthew Stafford right now, trying to see how good that life must be. So obviously for me, there's only one team left. I have the Phoenix Suns as my number 1 seed. The consistency of Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, and Devin Booker being back together, I think will be big. I think this is a year where Devin Booker, kind of like Chris said before, he's not a superstar yet. He's just not. And for some people trying to put him there, like he needs to put together another great season of like 25, 5-5 to show us. And I think he will do that. I think Chris Paul's veteran leadership, his IQ, defense, all that is going to be there. And I think DeAndre Ayton could play a little bit better this season than he did last year. It took him a little bit to really get in tune with CP3, but like you saw in the second half of the season in the playoffs, like he played exceptionally well once it clicked. You got the veteran wings there in Jay Crowder and Mikal Bridges. Not really a veteran, but he keeps improving. Cameron Payne from last year, he's back. He's going to be their scorer. They traded for Landry Shamet, who he's going to put up double-digit points for them off the bench. Cam Johnson's another year better. I was very iffy when Cam Johnson was selected a couple years back, but he's proven to be a pretty good selection for them now. And then, like Chris said, JaVale McGee is the backup big. Jalen Smith, their other first-round pick from a few years ago, I'm going to be intrigued to see what kind of role he can carve up here, but I think there's a chance he could finally get a little bit of playing time this year with this team and like start to make a bit of an impact. And Monty Williams is the coach. Like my thing is like when I look at all the other teams, it's Denver needing Jamal Murray to come back. It's Utah, they're good, but there's still some holes there. And the Lakers, like kind of like you said, I think LeBron and AD will definitely take their time in certain situations and sit for games here and there. I think this is a prime chance where the Suns can just overtake the first seed from all of them and ultimately come out on top in terms of the regular season in the West. What that means for the playoffs, I mean, who knows? But I think Phoenix definitely has a chance at capturing that top spot if things break right for them. And hey, it's broken right for them once. Who's to say it can't happen at least one more time for the regular season at least? So I got the Phoenix Suns as my top seed for the 2021-2022 season.
Yeah, so that's a wrap for this week. It might be two-parter, who knows. Guys, beautiful job as always to all of our listeners. Thank you so much. We're excited. NBA season is finally here. NFL is getting to the nitty-grits. NHL is on the way back. MLB in the thick of the playoffs, just sports everywhere. Jurg, where can they find us on the socials?
You guys already know the Somewhat Sports YouTube page, where obviously if you're listening to our beautiful voices now, then you're already there. And it's somewhat.sports on Instagram. Check out our posts. Obviously it'll be up by the time everyone listens to this, but our weekly NFL picks will continue. This past week, the winner was... Who was it, Chris?
I think Dame won this week.
So
Yes, sir.
So Dame won in week 5. So I've won 2 weeks. Dame's won 2 weeks. Chris has won 1 week. And the healthy competition and battle for just pride and maybe a dinner at Rose's one day is.
I like that.
Terms are still being negotiated, but yes, it's all on the line. We're putting it out there every single week. But you guys can follow us. Make sure to like and comment on YouTube, like and comment on IG, follow us on IG, subscribe on YouTube, do all that good stuff. Share it to everyone. Share it to your friends, your family, your girlfriend's family, significant other's family, whoever, guys. We're all inclusive here. We want everyone to listen, and we're glad for it and glad to have you all hearing us every week.
Beautiful, Jurg. Beautiful as always. Yeah. To our listeners, thank you for listening this whole way. If this is a two-parter, especially bigger thanks. Jurg and Dane, phenomenal job as always. You guys are the best. And until next time, peace.
Peace.